It's great to see you again.
Same here.
Yeah. So I've got a tiger behind me. Is it going to eat me?
Well, if it's a real jungle tiger, it shouldn't. It should just, mind its own business. But
I think it's a stock photo tiger.
there are changing behaviors, though.
But I like that because it shows a tiger in a field where people are going to be, right?
Yeah. Well, this is the typical grassland in the habitat
Yeah.
in the southern plains. But yeah, tigers have since they've grown and like they're tigers basically. It's their territory where humans have contributed with their sprawl. But most of the area is shared. It's common area, so
Yeah.
tigers are seen in the wheat
And what
fields.
kind of a tiger is this? Is this a
Bengal tiger?
Bengal? And so that would be the kind you have in Nepal and India, I assume.
Tiger, yeah.
Yeah. All over Asia. So tell me how this came about. I kind of tuned into the tension between the desire of people around the world to save these beautiful animals and endangered animals, but they need to make a living as well. They need to be out in the fields where the tigers or whatever else, the elephants, will trample or eat them. So tell us a little bit about how this, what the state of the situation there.
Well, initially the concern for conservation in general arises with the fact that the numbers of these species have dwindled significantly over the past many decades, centuries even, as in the case of tigers and elephants as well. The habitat alteration, hunting, poaching, and like basically stealing of prey species. There's so much that humanity has done in the natural landscape that has affected many species and hence their number and quality of life, and their normal natural processes have been affected, and as a result of which the more conscious and more considerate segment of the society came up with these ideas, like the changes that they were noticing were undesirable changes, and because we share this world, this planet with so many other beings together. The idea of conservation came, but then again, when we focus on particular species, because it's very easy to focus on one particular species, and even within the species, it's very easy to focus on cute, cuddly, the majestic, the more attracting or more sexy, glamorous species. And there are certain, like the prioritization of the selection of these species sometimes can be very strategic as well. Sometimes can hold a strategic, purpose, or there is that strategic advantage, like is in the case of tigers, because tigers are also known as umbrella species, which basically means protecting. Tiger habitat also means protecting lots of flora and fauna within that habitat.
You said umbrella species?
Yeah, umbrella species,
okay.
or politically and socially speaking, flagship species. Something that represents a larger community of other like wildlife, flora and fauna included. So there sometimes there's that advantage, that strategic advantage of picking one species over the other, but at the same time, again, what we have done over the time is, we being the people from within the conservation community, is we ourselves have let our own weaknesses, whether it is because it's easy to fundraise for one animal over the other, or because we ourselves might be biased, because we have, and I see this, in our circle, that many of us are kind of, like known because of one species. We tend to pick one species, and that's how we build our identity as well. And then slowly we tend to get a little bit biased as well, I think, because in Nepal, it's a blessed country, when it comes to biodiversity. And there are many other majestic, wildlife species that are really, crying for any bit of attention, but they aren't getting any. And then the tiger number, doubling of tiger number, and the intention was to double, the target was to double, but now we've almost, tripled the number. What is the limit of it? Who decides how many of them should be there, and do we have enough tigers now, or should we still, keep on meddling with the natural habitat to in the quest of increasing it, and at what cost? And should that little bit of that priority, maybe move towards species like last night I was talking to, another esteemed colleague of mine who is working in protecting wild yak population in the upper Trans-Himalayan region, which
yak,
yak, but wild.
Okay. Yeah,
very, very few of them left. And there are very small pocketed areas in the Nepalese Trans-Himalayan region where they're still still found, and there the conservationists are at the stage of basically letting people know that something like this exists, let alone like any serious concentrated effort on protecting their future. So there's this very much uneven distribution of attention because of all these different biases and conveniences that we sometimes pick over the importance and significance of one animal over the other. And that is why this tussle comes, if we overdo on something, one particular aspect, because it's convenient for us to do, or because we promised our donor, or there's someone that we want to please, or things like that. And I think in case of the tigers, we have the increasing the number of tigers is solely a noble cause. There's no doubt about it. But then in our terrain, it's not that easy, in today's world, because humanity has its own existence right next to it. And when we talk about a terrain like Nepal, communities are right there. Human settlements are right there, and tiger population is right there. It's the same area where both the species are foraging for their livelihood and for their foods and cultural engagement and so forth. So at times it gets tricky if you completely leave out other considerations just because it is difficult. And when the solely increasing of the number of species becomes highlighted as the success in conservation, which is a very, very a misinterpretation of what conservation success should look like, because it incorporates by the definition human welfare in it. So that's when this kind of situation arise, and the mismatch and the tension.
Right. And you talk about how this leads to changes in land use. Can you explain a little bit more about that? And
yes.
what some examples maybe of what's happened in Nepal and similar.
So primarily, again, there are many more direct hits that have been orchestrated, that have been carried out on different wildlife species, like poaching of tigers, like direct poaching of elephants for ivory and so on and so forth. That definitely has had long term, it has existed for a long time in the whether it was royalties hunting or it's like illegal poaching. Now it's organized, trade, basically wildlife trade, which is multi-billion-dollar industry globally. That has been there, but also one of the major underlying factor behind the degradation of habitat, hence the extirpation of and in some cases extinction of species, has also happened because the landscape have been changed by humanity. Whether it's for farming. Initially, it was for because of slash and burn, people populated uninhabited areas, or more wilderness areas. They just basically cleared out. If it was grassland, it was all burnt out. If it was a wetland, it was all buried and settled on by people. Or if it was forest, then wood chopped, and villages were created in the middle, which again exacerbates the conflict scenario, because it could be a prime migratory route for elephants, who have been using that particular area to migrate from A to B, and hence there's now a more exacerbated situation between humans and elephants. Or it could be the hunting ground for tigers from the nearby woods. that now is settled by. So humans have had this like massive footprint in the form of how we have altered the uses of land, like how we have used land now in different forms. Now much of the human settlement is basically just either blacktopped, paved, or cemented, basically taking all the wilderness out of it, and then basically making it as inhospitable for any life form, whether flora or fauna. We've done that, where like wildlife tends to kind of get really confused.
Well,
and it is not a viable place for them anymore. And that is why I believe the land use change is one of the most like significant issues that conservationists should really focus on, which is where again. And again, like these are the local communities have needs, like local people have needs that cannot be overlooked. Like I said, like everything lives in a very compact form in a setup like in Nepal. It's not Siberian vast wilderness that we're talking about. Within 3-kilometer radius, there are 4 tigers, and there's a village. There are a couple of villages. And there's like water source right in the middle, and there's foraging ground right in the middle. There's grazing ground right in the middle. So that is the kind of terrain we're talking about. And can you not consider what people need, and that these people, local people, have their lives to protect, their mouths to feed, and so on and so forth. That is where the land use comes in, because it is all in the quest of feeding some mouths, And it is not much to ask if you look at it from their perspective. So it's local land that was being farmed. Now the local indigenous people are basically just chopping it and selling it, because
they're kind of being pulled this way and that. I mean,
there are many push and pull factors that are influencing the decisions that are, and in Nepalese context, one really interesting thing is we don't have land grading system. Right, there's no agricultural land or like developable land, and this land and that.
Oh, where things are restricted for a certain use.
Exactly. So basically, all land is all private lands are like you could do whatever you want, basically.
Right.
You can build. So that is another reason why the price of land is like super high. Every single piece of land in Nepal is some places in Nepal. It doesn't even have to be Kathmandu, the main capital city. Plots of lands are more expensive than in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, even. Like it's just absolutely ridiculous. So that is one layer of dynamics. I think that has really jeopardized any possibility of like creating like harmony between humanity and wildlife. That buffer in the form of like for example, farmlands can be perfect habitat for many micro fauna. Like even like mid-sized mammal, every size mammal, small mammal, reptiles, amphibians. It has always been, for centuries, it has been perfect habitat, perfect cover, and so on and so forth. Now it is changing because these areas are being basically taken over by big industries, or again, like this concrete pouring business is on, which is shrinking the habitat, and which is why I think the land use change is something that we really need to consider. In a way that can empower the local indigenous people to remain in touch with their fatherland or motherland, while they can make a decent living.
Which brings us to the question about some well-meaning or maybe not so well-meaning conservation groups that come in and say, you should do this with your land because it will, it's more sustainable, or it's going to improve the wildlife population, or conservation tourism or something. And then things backfire. So you talk about this turmeric story, which I found fascinating. Like they produced a lot of turmeric and there was no follow through.
Absolutely. And before, and turmeric is just one of the examples out of many, actually. Before there, it was mentha, it was peppermint, it was chamomile. Like experimentation after experimentation at the cost of someone's life and someone's faith. It is a true, example of how not very well thought out these conservation initiatives are.
And it's like the slaughter of the innocents. You have these people buying into it and just saying, yes, I care, I want to do something. So they produce this stuff and then nobody comes back.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. So that is what happened with the turmeric as well. And because someone said, okay, like you have a market for this is a good cash crop, and like elephants are not interested in this, and it just rolls from one kind of problem to another kind of problem. Already troubled local people, living at the interface of human wildlife conflict, who have already, like despite all that, who have given so much for conservation by even tolerating, like the evictions, this, that, the historical atrocities
Oh God,
that they have to
yeah.
go through. And now they are partner in conservation. They are the eyes and ears against poachers and all that.
Yeah.
And now on top of everything, they are basically being duped, like being subject of experimentation. They're being the human guinea pigs of so many different conservation projects. Like projects
Do you
are
think
like,
this is a real risk to conservation and environmental preservation efforts?
absolutely. See, the very easy way of looking at conservation and human wildlife conflict is the proximity. When the proximity with the wildlife comes with the damage than the good it does, right? And these people do not have the liberty to see the long-term sustainability of the planet, and for whoever it might be, they are not in the liberty. They need to live now. They need
Yeah.
to remain alive today.
Yeah,
So
it's not like they
unless,
have a big
exactly,
storehouse of
until
resources.
unless and until the proximity with the wildlife brings some kind of benefit to these
Yeah.
people,
Hmm.
and does not bring any like really significant threat to their livelihood or life,
Yeah.
then the conservation does not make sense to these people, right? And as long as there's more damage, more threat, coming from the proximity with the wildlife, and no benefit coming, that situation is simply a situation of conflict. That
Yeah.
is basically human wildlife conflict, whether the extreme form being a death of the species, or death of a human, or it could be injury, or it could be damage of property, damage of crop, damage, basically alteration of their livelihoods, restrictions in this and that. And that always had existed. Now it has only exacerbated because in some people's way of thinking,
Hmm.
we have had success in conservation, which is not something that I believe in, because conservation is a state of balance. Like it talks about sustainability, that something has to keep on going for long. And like you said,
And
these people will definitely get fatigued. If
yeah.
it does not come in form of some kind of benefit for them, then this will definitely come. They will get
Right.
that fatigue, and they might actually even get antagonized against the idea of conservation, which is something that
Right.
happens all the time. And I think that is the concern, that really gets me uh, going down at the ground, which is why we talk about ecotourism, and something that has that can be directly linked with the conservation as a benefit to these local people, so the motivation doesn't die.
In the we have about 10 minutes to go. I know we can talk a little bit about some of your other efforts in this ecotourism and research areas. You want to do that, or is there another point you'd like to make about this topic?
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly in that quest of making conservation beneficial is something that I've, I've been working on for many years now.
Hmm.
Little off from the very hands-on conservation. Now the focus, the demand of time and situation, I think, is in bringing, relatable, realizable benefits that can directly be, attributed to this so-called success of conservation. If we
Yeah.
cannot do that, then there's
Hmm.
not much hope for the sustainability of this success, which is why we have created these examples, little nuggets of samples, if I can call them, that in Berdia we are working on working together with the local communities in bringing out the real the real essence of what Berdia has to offer, as
Yeah.
a natural landscape,
And
but
that's
also
a national park which has tigers, um,
it has tigers. It has
rhinos.
the last remaining, like the last stronghold population of Asiatic elephants that keep
Yeah.
migrating from from India and Nepal, and also there we have resident population. We have one-horned rhinos. We have got our own unicorns, and it's very rich landscape. It's very rich landscape. We've got dolphins, river dolphins in this Himalayan nation. So it just goes. The list goes on and on and on. But together with the natural wonders, we also have cultural wonders. Like it is also equally a very much a indigenous and cultural landscape, and that the local Thado people have a lot to offer as experience. And all we need to do is like focus on these kind of things and work together with the community to devise both the conservation initiatives as well as the benefits that the conservation can bring to them. If we can,
and I think your emphasis, your schools program that's to me one of the most. We've lost him temporarily, but I think he'll be back. But Manoj is. Are you there? Are you there? Oh. Anyway, Schools for Sustainable Development Goals. Schoolsforsdg.org is one of the programs that he has organized, and it's an amazing opportunity. So you can go to that website and inquire about some of the programs they have going there, as well as Bardia Travel. I've actually been. While we're waiting for Manoj to come back, I've actually been to Bardia, and I went on a research trip, and Manoj took us all around Nepal and was wonderful. But Bardia was one of my favorite spots, and we saw the rhinos and all that. But so we'll have him back. Planet Peregrine is another research-oriented for kind of scientific conservation travel, and we will be. Sometimes when you have people in other countries, this happens. But thank you so much for joining us. You've been listening to Common Earth, the podcast and live stream about sustainability and environmental balance. I guess it was the theme of our discussion today on human-wildlife conflict, and we appreciate your presence. Please visit our website at Manoj is one of my authors at Pierce Press, so he's got his own website, manojgautam.com, and he will be rolling out the next topic. I think is wildlife tech, so artificial intelligence in the practice of wildlife conservation. So thank you all for joining. I appreciate it, and we apologize for our technical difficulties, but Manoj has a lot more to say, and he'll be back. Thank you so much. Bye.